Progressives Congress is Daniel Bwala, spokesperson for the Atiku Okowa Presidential Campaign Council. Welcome to the morning show. Good morning.
Thank you, Ayo, and good morning, Dr. Abati.
Well, good morning, Daniel Bwala, and thank you for joining us. Well, spokesperson of the All Progressives Congress, Festus Keyamo, has asked the security agencies to arrest immediately the presidential candidate of your party on the basis of allegations made by Michael Achimogo. And he's even saying that he's so convinced that Waziri Atiku Abubakar has a case to answer, that he is prepared to step down from the campaign and just follow up with that case in court. Your camp has only been responding, with attacks on the Michael Achimogo and also, I guess, on Festus Keyamo. What exactly is the truth?
Well, that's not true. I have granted interviews, a couple of interviews, one to Voice of America, that of Germany, and yesterday on another TV station where I discussed in extensio the matter. So nobody is attacking Keyamo or Achimogo. Let me start from the point of law of what he wrote, that is, attack the issues frontally. It is believed that when somebody is called to the bar, he must have gone through the university before the law school where he would have been taught in criminal law the procedure that will lead up to the arrest of a suspect. First, you make a report. 2, the law enforcement will investigate. And 3, if they find credible evidence, they will invite the person. If the person refuses to show up, they will declare him, if he can't be seen, they will declare him wanted or they will arrest him. And from there, they will charge him to court and prosecute. They teach that in part 2 and 3 of the university. Anybody who is a lawyer that does not know these basics and writes a letter to the law enforcement and call on the law enforcement to outrightly arrest somebody on the evidence of a paper that he wrote, that person's certificate must be questioned. That's to begin with. But I assume that when somebody has what we call a condition we call pantophobia, it's possible that even though the person may be experienced in law, but he can exhibit that. Pantophobia is a condition where somebody is having increased anxiety that is triggered by the fear of something. And I know that APC and Asiwaju Tinubu, they are presently suffering from pantophobia. It is a fear of imminent defeat that is staring them right in the face. And that fear, sometimes there are some people who can say it's justifiable because when somebody assumes that he will win, but every day of his life and their campaign, they are confronted with stacked chances of failure, it's possible for them to come up to throw in anything from the kitchen sink. The fear that the campaign is being shattered because some members of the campaign are not supporting, the fear that 2 days ago they had to call all the chairmen in the country and the vice presidential candidate had to tell them that, look, we are spying on you. We have some of you are not working for us. The fear that each time they gather people in a campaign and they shouted Nigeria, the people respond by saying, say Atiku, a meeting that they themselves called. The fear that people around them who are executives of states are secretly working for us. The fear that members of their campaign council are disillusioned and some complaining to resign. When you are confronted by that, you come to the biggest of all fears. The fear that there is nothing, no record to present to the Nigerian people that will warrant for them to be voted for, because obviously it is a referendum on them. So when faced by that, anything in the kitchen sink is possible for them to throw. And they are right now in a campaign trying to tell the nation that they are in control of the law enforcement, and that is why they could do certain things that are inimical and expect that the law enforcement will throw away the caution of the due process of law and do as they bid. So I am not surprised by that. Now, regarding what they said, okay, you wanted to say something?
No, go ahead. When you finish, I thought you had finished your statement.
Right. Okay. Regarding the allegation, yesterday I replied in extensio. They presented in their conference the blackmailer as a whistleblower. Now, there is a difference between a blackmailer and a whistleblower. If you're familiar with the nitty-gritties of law enforcement, anytime intelligence or report comes to them in the name of a whistleblowing, these are the facts they observe to differentiate whether he is a true whistleblower or whether he is a blackmailer. Number one, the complaint that is made. When did that happen? And this one, they complain about what happened when Atiku Abubakar was vice presidential candidate. So the blackmailer was not there. Everything he said was what he heard, which is hearsay. Number two, that the law enforcement will want to find out what the person complained about. Is he accessory to it? In the video or audio that the blackmailer reported, you could hear him saying, yes, I will handle them. Yes, I will handle them. In other words, he participated in the information that he claimed he was sharing, for which now he is revealing. Number three, the law enforcement will say the whistleblower, what is the motive or objective of the disclosure? Whistleblowers disclose that in the interest of public peace, safety, and national security, or organizational preservation of the integrity of the organization. But the blackmailers presents that in and attach certain attachments to it. In this case, this blackmailer, if you have watched the video, you will see him saying that in this election, I'm telling you this, why you will not vote for him. I'm telling you this, why Nigeria will not vote for him. In other words, he has politicized it. The last one that law enforcement will ask is that, is this whistleblower coming free of his free volition, or was he influenced, induced, or terrorized? In this case, you could see, even from the video, one of the video, he was sounding like somebody speaking at gunpoint. But we have credible evidence that is being financed and supported by All Progressives Congress. And you can look at his attachment to it. So on the basis of it, no law enforcement will treat that letter that they did, the conference that they did, as anything worthy of even consideration, not to talk of giving it the useless time of investigation. But we are not surprised they are doing that because of pantophobia.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Boala, for defining pantophobia and explaining or giving your response to the press conference that was held by the APC-PCC. But I want to ask you a question. I want to assume that you've listened to Mr. Michael Achimogo's, you've watched the video and listened to the audio recordings he had. I'd like you to confirm a few things. Number one, was Waziri Atiku Abubakar's voice in that audio clip? Number two, and this is speaking to Nigerians, so even away from the APC. Then number two, do you think that if a candidate is seen to be investigated on the grounds of corruption or diverting public funds, that is money belonging to Nigerians, which was stolen, do you think that is grounds for a presidential candidate to step down?
Right. So let me start with the two and come to the one. The second point, maybe you slightly misconstrued by making a conclusion that the Nigerian money was stolen. What they were trying to say in that blackmail was that Atiku Abubakar is corrupt because from the evidence of that communication released, Atiku Abubakar in the time past corrupted himself. And then number one, and I will answer that. Number one, you also said if that voice in that communication is the voice of Atiku Abubakar. Now, let me tell you, I am not in a position at the moment to deny or confirm that it is the voice of Abubakar. But what I did, and I've been doing is, like playing the devil's advocate, in the worst case scenario, even if it is the voice of Abubakar, the question I have asked is, in that communication, is the law breached? In that communication, is there an infraction of the law? And then you deal with the substance of the case. So let me deal with that. The only thing that they said in their press statement and they wrote in that their baseless letter is that in the communication, Atiku Abubakar said, we floated an SPV and the SPV will use it in financing the political party activities. And they try to say in all their social media that SPV is a corrupt practice. And so I said that is expression of ignorance. SPV is a concept in corporate governance that of developing or creating a separate entity from an organization or entity or whatever business venture where the SPV manage risk. SPV is not unlawful, it's not illegal, except if the SPV commits the illegal act. So if Atiku Abubakar said there was an SPV created where we have consultants, when they get a job, they make remittance of support to the party, unless if you can show that crime has been committed, there is no evidence to suggest in this given scenario that crime has been committed. And Atiku said in the very communication, that's why context is important. In the same communication, he said this case has been reported to the EFCC. They have thoroughly investigated it, and there is no evidence of a wrongdoing. Ordinarily, if those lawyers are reasonable people, they will know that there is an estoppel there. And if they have any issue, it is not Atiku. They will contact the EFCC and then challenge the EFCC and not challenge Atiku. But pantophobia, what it does is that it distorts your rational thinking. It tends to give you the sudden anxiety where a senior advocate will behave like a first-year law student, or a professor of law can behave like somebody who is just trying to get admission into school. That's case number one. Case number two, this whole gamut of story that they are bringing, it is in a bid to cover up for what they know is about to come about an existing investigation in the EFCC, not fiction, existing investigation in EFCC that was submitted a few years ago by the former MD of Alpha Beta, where he indicted in his investigation corrupt practices by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the flag bearer of the All Progressives Congress. And in that petition, he outlined criminal activities that if the EFCC is to act upon it today, Asiwaju will be arraigned in court. And we, with the knowledge of law, are not even saying arrest him, because first you must investigate. The good thing for us is that this was submitted to them for years. For there is every reason to believe that they would have concluded investigation on that. And that's why these people did that, because they know we're going to call on EFCC to act by arraigning this man in the court. But we haven't even done anything yet. You know that on the evidence of law, this man has a conviction from a court in Chicago. And they know that the Nigerian people, their mind is made up on the basis of that we cannot elect somebody as president who will be a subject of blackmail from the country. They also know that some journalists did an investigation and they are writing a petition to NDLEA of investigation of certain drugs that were discovered in Lagos. And that is why they felt that by creating what do I call it, like you are trying to distract somebody from the main issue that is to come, they came up with this issue that has no basis in law, no basis in fact, no basis in ethics, but the frenzy. When they pushed this young man and he released those things, the media houses in Nigeria didn't see it as anything reasonable to carry it. So for days, this thing was not covered. Then they now said, let us hold a press conference and blackmail the media. And that's what they did yesterday.
Yeah, but you haven't answered my question. The second question.
Blackmailed the media.
Mr. Bala, second question. I asked that very pointedly,
okay,
that
what was it?
and I wasn't referring to your candidates. I was saying, in the event that a presidential candidate has corruption allegations in terms of fraudulent activities, is that enough for him to step aside? Just wanted to get a statement on that.
Oh, you see, your question cannot be determined before an election. And because you say in the event that he's found culpable. Now, the procedure for coming to that culpability is that if I report you to the law enforcement, the law enforcement will investigate, and they don't give a timeline for investigation. They can finish today, they can finish next month, they can finish 6 months' time. The reason is because in investigation, they will look at all my claims. They will now go to their database to look at your activities. And in the course of investigation, it might even create what we call a web, where it will connect to other individuals. Now, that process that it will last for them to come to that conclusion, it is not something that can be concluded before the election, which will then give that point you are saying whether he should step away from that election. And even after the investigation is done, they will come up with a finding whether they have found credibility in that report or not. If they have not found credibility, it goes away. If they found credibility, then they will invite the person to come and now begin to answer questions on their findings. If he could not establish a concrete defense, then they will now proceed to charge him. So the question does not arise because the election would have been conducted assuming that even their claim has legibility. But in this case, they are writing a petition on what has been investigated with a finding that there is no evidence of wrongdoing. So it does not even warrant a question in the given circumstance. It is an exercise in futility. It is a wild goose chase. It is an attempt to distract the Nigerian people from the real issue at hand. Whether the Nigerian people will vote somebody who has mental instability, whether the Nigerian people will vote another 8 years of insecurity, bad economy, and corruption in the system, whether the Nigerian people are prepared to have a country where it can be called a pariah state, where the Nigerian people even would tolerate a campaign for the first time in history, where a political party established a militia they call Jagaban soldier or battalions with uniform in this very broad daylight. So it doesn't even arise at all.
Okay, Daniel Bala, two things. Now, in the midst of all this, which the APC has now branded Atiku Gate, that's what they call it, Atiku Gate. Don't you think it may be a good idea for the candidate personally to address the matter and not leave it to spokespersons? Because questions have been raised. Did Achimugu, did he actually work for Waziri Atiku Abubakar? Was he at a point a member of the media committee of your presidential campaign? And did he in fact also write a book titled The Lion of Jada on the PDP presidential candidate? I thought some people are saying if the candidate were to come forward himself and address the issues instead of this, back and forth among the spokespersons. I asked as part of my question. Yes, I asked as part of that question, would the presidential candidate of the PDP directly respond to some of those issues that have been raised by the man you call whistleblower?
And my answer is, he will not respond to a baseless distraction ahead of the election. We're making our case to the Nigerian people for election. And in which case, if the people believe in that blackmail, they will express that at the poll.
All right, so